Hey everybody, thank you for joining bestreitips.com for today's lesson on finding ARV, how to run comps on a shoestring budget. I'm Courtney Jones and I'll be walking you through this training today. I run the website and blog at bestreitips.com and I've been investing for 26 years. Let's get started talking about what is ARV and what is a comp. So ARV is a term you're going to hear quite often if you're in the investing arena. An ARV simply means the after repair value, meaning what the house is going to be worth after it's fixed up and repaired. Now, that level of fix up and repair can be different things for different people. A fixer-upper, rehabber type investor might do a full-blown rehab with all new floor, kitchens, baths, etc., and really make it top-notch if it supports the neighborhood or if the neighborhood supports it. A landlord neighbor or rehabber type person might just simply put new kitchen cabinets or maybe even painted kitchen cabinets, possibly some new paint, that kind of thing, leave old flooring and make it, rent condition. So it just depends. The after repair value is going to depend on really who's doing the work and who the buyer is, okay, and what they're planning to do to it. Now, a comp is a short word for comparables, okay, which is really just an appraisal term that refers to finding similar properties with similar characteristics, similar size, similar style to the subject property that you're trying to create a value for. Okay, so whether it's done through an appraiser, an official appraiser, or a realtor through another method we'll talk about, just you're really trying to get a comp, which is to say this is approximately what this house is worth because it's similar in size, shape, and condition and characteristics to this house, which sold for X amount. Okay. Now, for the most accurate numbers when determining and coming up with values, and particularly your comp values, you're going to want to look at houses that are similar in age, definitely within 3 to 5 years, ideally the same range. Like, typically you'll have a neighborhood that's built out and all the houses are built around the same time. Those are ideal comps, okay? But if you have to go to a different neighborhood and there's some different age ranges in there, that's fine, but just try to look at houses that are within a 3 to 5 year period. Now, similar build style is what's important. You want to compare a one level to a one level, a two-story to a two-story, and so forth. Each of those has different costs involved. It's much cheaper to build a two-story house than it is to build a one-level house. You don't need as much land typically, and you can go up, which anytime you go up, it's a little cheaper. So you want to compare similar builds to similar builds. You also want to take a look at similar square footage. Okay, you're not going to compare a 4,000 square foot house to a 2,200 square foot house. You want them to be similar, and then you're going to look at a price per square foot and come up with your actual value. Okay, you also want to try to look at similar number of beds, baths, and parking. So you wouldn't compare a house with no garage to a house with a two-car garage. Now, if every other house in the neighborhood has two-car garages and your subject property has a three-car garage, you're going to get a little bit of a premium for that, okay? But you're also going to be brought down a little bit because of the fact that every other house has a two-car garage. And then you want to look at similar finishes. So if you go into a neighborhood and the one particular neighborhood has vinyl floors and cultured marble tops and on their bathroom counters and Formica countertops in the kitchen, and then the neighborhood next door has all really nice tile throughout, wood looking tile and granite countertops and brand new kitchen cabinets and all those things, then those would not be comparables necessarily. Okay, so you want to look at houses that have similar finishes, and then within a half a mile to a mile of the subject property. In an ideal world, it's going to be the closer the better. And then the one thing I didn't put on here is the time. You want to look for comps within at least 6 months and preferably really soon, like within 30 to 60 days. So the closer in time the sold comp is, the better, but you don't want to go out further than 6 months. Okay. Now, there's a couple things you need to keep in mind when running comps, but the number one thing is that a true comp is always using a sold property. Okay, so a comp is not necessarily an active listing. That's something that's out there for sale right now. It will give you an idea, and you'll see how I use it in a minute, but it will give you an idea of what your property could sell for. But when you're truly looking at what the actual value of the house is and looking for a comp, you want to use sold numbers. Okay, now there's a bunch of different ways to actually get comps and to find those sold numbers. Okay, the absolute number one best way is to use a realtor or realtor's MLS. Now, MLS stands for the Multiple Listing Service, which is simply a computer program, for lack of a better term, a database of houses all across the country and in your area that have sold through a realtor or anywhere else for that matter. And realtors are able to access through what's called the MLS, and they're able to take a look at the exact condition and terms and all of those types of things that cause a house to sell. So if I'm offering a $6,000 seller concession on a house, that's going to be taken into consideration, and you're going to see that in the MLS. Okay, so this is the absolute number one way to find values of a house that you're either looking at buying direct from a seller or even from another wholesaler. Okay, so the number one way to figure out comps is to use a realtor or realtor's MLS. Now, if you're a licensed realtor, great, you have access to that. If you're not, then you want to put a realtor on your team, okay, and they can help you by getting those values for you. And if you feel like at some point you're abusing that power and asking for too many CMAs, which we'll talk about in a moment, then I always recommend paying these people. Okay, so many realtors will do them for you for free. But if you're just always asking for a CMA and you're not doing anything for that realtor or listing anything with that realtor, they're professionals too. So I recommend that you pay for that so that you can get good numbers. Okay, so you're going to request a CMA, which is a comparative market analysis from a realtor. And typically a CMA would have 3 sold, 3 pending, and 3 active comps, so that you can really get a feel for the market around that house. So if you're looking at buying a particular property and you ask a realtor for the CMA, then you can tell them, I would like 3 sold, 3 pending, and 3 active comps that match this house. Here's my subject property and the details about it. And you would give them the details we discussed earlier. Okay, so that's the number one way. And again, I do recommend paying professional people for information if you need to. I mean, if you've gotten 1 or 2, 3 CMAs from a realtor and you haven't done business with that realtor yet where they could make money off of you, then it's a really good idea. You're going to get what you pay for. Okay. Now, the number 2 way to get comps and to find out a property's true value is to use a paid service. So, assuming you don't have a realtor and you can't get somebody to get you that information, there are paid services that you can access. You would pay a monthly service fee typically for most of these, where you can go in and get the same data yourself. Now, of course, the first one's nice because you're outsourcing it, so that way you can use your time to do more productive and revenue generating activities. The second one here, you're either going to have to find someone within your office to do it, someone that you're going to pay as an assistant, or you're going to do it yourself. Any time that you spend doing something like this is time that you're not spending in front of talking to a seller, which is really where your time as an investor needs to be spent, either raising money or talking to sellers. Okay, so the paid services that I've noted here are all different ones. My personal favorite is the crsdata.net. I've used that a lot. When I first started using it back in Tennessee, it was really only in about 3 states, including Tennessee, and we really liked it a lot. We've used it for many years now, I think 10 plus years, and that is my personal favorite. But all of these are good, and CRS is not available in all areas, so you'll have to check and make sure that it's available in your area. So these services, you just pay a monthly fee to have access to data that's similar to what the realtors have through the MLS. Now, the third and final way that you can find out property's value is by using free online services. And here's just a few of the ones that are available. I'll show you the easiest way to find them and to get to them. Some of these you'll hear of on a regular basis. Almost everybody's heard of most of these: Zillow and Redfin, Trulia, Realtor.com. All of these have information accessible to you, and you can get it the thing is to know what you're looking for, okay? Which is why I'm going to walk you through a little bit of a demonstration here in just a minute, okay? So the free online services is absolutely the last resort for the best accurate data. Of course, like anything, you get what you pay for, so it is free, and you're not going to have as accurate a data. You're going to have to make some assumptions, which is okay. You can do that, but it's just not going to be true data, but it'll be a pretty good range. And the downside to this is that it is time consuming. And so again, as I mentioned before, the number one thing you can be doing as an investor is sitting in front of sellers and talking to sellers, making offers on properties or finding private lenders. So this is just one of those things that takes your time that is not going to be revenue producing. Okay. But let's go ahead and jump into how to use these free services. Okay, so first of all, remember when you're looking at a house, you're looking for a couple of different things. Okay, you're looking at what do you want to pay for it, like make sure you're getting in the appropriate range of what you want to pay for it. But what I really am looking at when I'm looking at these is I'm looking at what's the ARV, remember the after repair value, going to be for somebody that I might sell it to. So if I'm wholesaling this property and I'm selling it to a rehabber, what kind of finishes and condition do they need to get it into so that it fits the other houses in the market? And once they rehab it, what's it going to be worth? Okay. And then if I'm looking for a property for one of my landlord buyers, they might have some different criteria. Okay. So the thing to consider is like a landlord buyer is probably not going to go in and rehab the whole thing and put in all new tile and that kind of stuff. They're probably going to leave the existing tile. But so they're going to have less costs involved. Okay. So you kind of want to know those things in advance. So when I'm looking at the quote unquote comps, what I'm looking for is what else is in the area? What are the values going to be like once it's fixed up? And what kind of money are they going to have to put into it to be able to get it to that price range? Okay. And again, it's not going to be an exact science when you're using free services, but it is an opportunity to at least get you close. Okay. So let's take a look at those. Let me get that out of the way. All right, so the very first thing I do is I take the address of a property that I'm interested in. In this case, let's say this one. Okay, and I'm going to put that into Google and see what pops up. Okay, so the very first thing that pops up is a map that shows me that this is around the 35th Avenue and Northern area, which is perfect. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at that, and I'm just going to scroll down this page. What I usually will do is I'll open every single one of these tabs by right-clicking on it and then opening up the tab. So I'll just right-click and choose Open Link in New Tab. Okay, now I've already done that, so I'm not going to open this one, but I'll go through every single one of these that I know is a comp type service, and I'll look at each of those and open them up. Okay, now in this case I've already done that to make it a little bit easier. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go into Zillow, and assuming I'm in the right area, which I am, this shows me it's at Northern and 35th Avenue. Okay, sorry, Northern and 35th Avenue. So this is in the right area. Okay, now on Zillow, this shows you all of these are different styles, so listing types. Okay, and you can put them in right here, listing types. Okay, and you can see what I'm really looking for, as I said, remember, is recently solds. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go in and look at recently solds, and I'm going to remove all of these other things. Okay, let me get out of here. And then, my goodness, there's a lot of solds in that area. I'm going to get mirrored down a little bit more. Okay. Okay, so lots of solds in this area. Okay, and so I'm just going to kind of start looking. This one, our subject property is a 3-bedroom, so I'm going to do 3-bed. Okay, home type, it's a house, so I don't need any apartments, condos, townhouse, manufacturers, or lots. Okay, I'm going to do 100,000 plus. And square footage on our subject property, let's see, our baths is 2 baths, so I'm going to say 2 plus. Our square footage on our subject property is 1,300, so I'm going to just take a look at those that are 1,100 to let's say 1,600. That should give me a little bit more narrowed down. and sold in the last 90 days. Oh, okay, so here we go. Let's go a little further out so we have a few more. Let's go 6 months. Okay, so they're perfect. Okay, so now I'm pulling those up and I'm taking a look at each of these. Okay, so I can see I've got several right around the neighborhood. So Morton is where my subject property is. Okay, I'm going to move this a little bit out of the way and then I'm going to just take a look at each of them. So here, this one's sold. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I believe it said. Okay, it's sold for $115. It was built in 1961, so within 2 years of our subject property. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Okay, and then I'm going to look at the condition of the house. Okay, so there's no pictures. Okay, so I'm not going to look at the condition of this one. Okay, but remember with the other property, I'm not sure if I told you that I do this, but I always pull up the pictures and look through the property to see the condition of the property. Okay, so in the email he had pictures. So I'm going to go through and quickly look and see just the condition of the property to get a feel for what kind of house I'm looking at. Okay, in Arizona, we typically tend to have these kind of shingle roofs, or we'll have tile roofs. Okay, so I want to compare like houses to like houses. In this one, you can see that it's got tile flooring, it looks like in here. The kitchen cabinets appear to be painted, and it's a tile kitchen countertop. Okay, so just quickly kind of go through so I know what my subject property looks like. Again, if you were meeting with a seller, you would be doing this in person. Okay, so you'd be looking at the condition of the property when you're there. You can see here the bathroom appears to have a granite countertop in this bathroom. Okay, um, and again, ceramic tile, it looks like. Okay, so that gives me a good feel for what that property condition is. So when I go look at this one, I can see that the outside looks very similar to the subject property. And there are no interior pictures, which is fine. We're going to look at others. Okay, so then we'll go to the next one. Again, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, recently sold for $150. This one's a little smaller than our subject property. And again, no pictures. Oh, like these, I mean, a couple. No, nothing exciting. Okay, but that's okay. We're getting a feel for it. So that one sold for $150. Now this one sold for $196. Okay, same style roof. Looks a little new. Okay, that roof looks kind of nice and new. I'm going to look at these pictures here. Looks like there's some hardwood floors in here. So this is kind of a little bit nicer than the condition of our house. These looks like old cabinets. Can't really tell on these counters. Let's see. That looks like oh yeah, the old flooring. So still old flooring, old counters, old cabinets. Okay. So nothing fancy there, no new kitchen or anything. It looks like they did put some hardwoods in, but otherwise they have the old tile. So this would be maybe slightly fixed up from our property, but not a whole lot. Nothing fancy in the bathroom, so pretty comparable. Okay. So I'm looking at that. And I'm going, okay, this is a little nicer than the subject property that I'm looking at. This is probably the kind of house that a landlord would easily rent out in its current condition. This one does have a pool. Okay, so I'd be looking at that and saying, okay, yeah, this is slightly more valuable than the house I'm looking at, but something that a landlord could easily. This one sold for $195. Okay, so my subject property, remember, is they're asking $149 and they're saying that the after repair value is $185. Well, I just found one that's actually a little bit sold for more than that. So I think that's a good 195 tells me that you could easily get 195 for it. Okay, because that's very comparable. That's 1,518 square feet. Our subject property is 1,543, I believe. Yeah. So in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Okay. So now I'm going to look at a 216 one. Okay, that's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. So not the same because ours is a 3-2. Here's a 3-2, okay, 1,500 square feet. Now let's take a look at what this one looks like. Okay, so this one sold for $225. It's a nice roof, garage, no interior pictures. This is the problem when you have a super hot market. Everything sells so fast, people don't even put up pictures. Okay, so you're gonna just kind of go through each of these websites and look at similar concepts. Now, I want to show you something. I want to see if I can find one that's kind of just way out of whack. So you can at least see what I'm talking about. So sometimes you'll look at some and you're just like, yeah, that's not even close to my subject house. It's way higher or way lower. Let's look at this one, 348. Okay, so actually doesn't look all that fancy. Okay, but here you go. Okay, so this one sold for 348. And you can see here, this house is done to the nines, right? So completely gorgeous kitchen, all new paint, pool looks good. Looks flashy. Actually, looks like they just painted the cabinets. It doesn't even look like they redid them. They replaced them. It looks like it's just paint. They just did nice fixtures and things like that. Yeah, it just looks like they did that. They did put some new flooring in. Okay, painted throughout, kept neutral. New flooring. It looks like in there maybe. Okay, so it just shows you like a rehabber could possibly, okay, very nice bathroom done up. Could possibly get that much more for the house. It's just how much they would want to put into it. Okay, so that one sold for 348 on 5-1. Okay. So you're just going to go through and look at all different things like that. Now, once I look at the solds, I'm going to go through and look at solds everywhere. Okay, Redfin, I'm going to look at all of them just to make sure I didn't miss anything and just to give me a good idea and a value. It doesn't have to be exact. Okay, so you don't have to get it exact. You need to get within a range. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to take a look at what's currently on the market. So I'm going to look at what's for sale by owner. I don't want new construction. I don't want foreclosures. I don't want coming soon. I don't even necessarily want owners. And I'm going to take recently solds out. So I'm going to look at all that and I'm going to look and see what would be the competitive prices if a rehabber were to go put this house on the market right now. Okay. And then what are those competitive priced houses look like? So this one here, for instance, is for 243. I'm going to take a look at that. Okay, that's a nice clean house, very nice condition. Okay, it's a 3-2 if I recall, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to take a look and just see. Okay, it does look like they put new tile in. It definitely looks like they did new cabinets, and possibly a new counter. It's hard to tell on that one. Okay, again, you don't have to be exact. You have to just get accurate or close. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, it's clean. You can see that this is a clean house. Not that it doesn't need some work. Okay, it's got wallpaper that needs to be removed here. Okay, so if somebody what that tells me is I'm flipping through more wallpaper. Okay, more paint colors. So clean house, well kept for house. However, not in pristine, amazing condition. Okay, it's a beautiful house and shows well on the outside. But what I'm looking at is to see, okay, if that house is currently for sale for 243, then if my rehabber comes in and really makes ours nice, the subject property that I'm going to be selling to him, he could probably put it on the market for 243 and be in line with everything else that's out there. Okay, so that's how I'm going to look at those numbers and kind of analyze what's available. And so I'm going to do that with several houses in the area and then with each of the sites so that I can get a really good feel. And from all of that, I'm going to get a good feel for what my property could sell for to a rehabber, to a landlord buyer, and then I'm going to use my formulas to figure out my wholesaling number and my maximum allowable offer that I'm going to make to the seller. Okay, so I hope that this was helpful to you. And if you want to get more training like this, make sure you join my mailing list at bestreitips.com. Again, that's bestreitips.com. And you can also go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our channel to be notified of any new videos that come online. Okay, so it's bestreitips.com. And I'm Courtney Jones. Thanks for joining me.